Sure. How about we take a couple of minutes introducing myself, and then I'd like Pallavi to introduce herself, and then maybe we can dive straight into the slides that we have prepared. Quick question for you, Ale, is do you want us to share the screen, or will you be sharing the screen with our slides?
You can share the screen. You already are able to, if you want. You can.
Sure, Pallavi, if while I introduce myself, please prepare your screen with the slides, all right? I believe, Alessandro, everybody is in different locations scattered around the world. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah,
All
so
right.
we have India, Sweden, Montenegro, Argentina, Germany.
All right. So I'm
Mozambique,
sorry for the
Thailand.
Argentinian student. I don't know if it's, I guess it's night time, but anyway, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the class. My name is Matteo. I've been in the industry that I called microfinance, MSME banking for the last 19 years. Born and raised in Italy, as you can tell from my British accent. Grew up in a small town and went to study in Milan, did my master in economics, same university where I met your brilliant professor, Alessandro, but obviously he was more talented on the academic front than me, and you can see the differences of careers and choices. Ale is a great friend and is a brilliant prof, and I think you guys, I'm sure you appreciate and you know how lucky you guys are. At the beginning of my career, I wanted to change the world because I had met Professor Mohammed Yunus in Milan. I did not know anything about microfinance and Grameen Bank. And I followed Professor Yunus for the entire summer in Bangladesh, where I learned the basic nitty-gritty details of microfinance. Came back to Milan, finished my thesis, wrote it about microfinance in post-conflict countries. I went visit between Serbia, Kosovo, Croatia, Montenegro, Albania, back in the day, and it was an interesting experience to research microfinance in post-conflict. To make a long story short, I wanted to change the world. I don't know if I'm able to change the world, but I'm still hopeful that I can. I failed miserably in my pursuit of a career with United Nations. I wanted to work for UN. I think I've applied for millions of UN agencies and nobody gave me a decent job, maybe because I was not capable enough, who knows. But anyway, private sector saved my life. I've been in Myanmar now for about 7 years. I was in Cambodia for about 4 years. I left Italy in 2003, never came back. Did a bit of work and lived in 3 continents, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Was in Tanzania for about a year, Afghanistan, Serbia, Bangladesh, Thailand, and now Myanmar, Yangon is my home. Pallavi, over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. What Matteo said just made me laugh about the UN because I actually had something to say about that, but I'll get to it. So my background, my bachelor's is in business, and then I did also an internship with UNHCR, which is when I really got interested in humanitarian efforts and also development related work. And then I pursued my master's in the Netherlands with the United Nations University, and I just graduated in 2018. And the funny thing is, I also, like everybody else at my university, thought I'm never going to work for the private sector. Now, I used to think that it's a little bit evil because it's all about making money, and they don't really care about doing the good work. And I was proven wrong. So my professor is the one who connected me with Matteo, and I remember having this intense discussion with her where I said, but money is always going to come first. And she persuaded me to kind of, change my objective. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a go and we'll see. Because she said, private sector is really, really important. I don't think that, governments and UN and NGOs.
I'm sorry, Pallavi, we lost you.
I think we lost Pallavi.
The connection froze, probably.
It's okay. Let's give her a couple of seconds, Ale, to come back. Otherwise, I'll.
I think she's back. Hi, Pallavi.
Back to you, Pa.
But we can't hear you at the moment. Can you?
Yeah, we cannot hear you, Pallavi. Try to mute and unmute. All right.
Audible?
Well,
Okay,
yes.
I think the recording is now catching up, so we'll probably hear something with Pallavi. Can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you as well. So we lost you when you started saying that the private sector has an important role to play. If you have any other problem like this, let me just suggest, please switch off the webcam so you free up some bandwidth, and then it should work better. But if nothing happens, just we would like to see you. Thanks.
Okay, so the next time that happens, I'm going to do that. So yeah, just coming back to my point, I think, yeah, so I thought, private sector wasn't important. And then my professor kind of convinced me otherwise, or she said, give it a go. Because now we're seeing this shift towards, purpose-driven CEOs, purpose-driven, companies. And it's not only about creating shareholder value, which is of course there, but it's also about creating like a larger societal value. And that's kind of, how I ended up at Maha. And I think that I've seen myself for it to be true. I feel the potential is vast. And what's really amazing about doing ESG from my experience at Maha was that I got to join right at the start, which, allowed me to be a little bit more creative. And unlike the UN, so Matteo, maybe this will make you happy. We don't have a lot of bureaucracy, so we can actually get shit done. Sorry for my language. So yeah, I think overall, yeah, I think it's really been educational also for me to learn. And yeah, it's been a fun ride. So I'm gonna stop there and maybe share my screen with the slides so Matteo can get started.
Thank you, Pallavi. And while Pallavi is sharing the screen, guys, FYI, she spent 6 months with us doing an internship back in 2018. And then after the internship, she was offered a full-time position. So that's a good message, I hope, for you guys to find meaningful internship opportunities. And hopefully some of those can be transformed into full-time job opportunities as well. But anyway, Pallavi, let's go into this quickly, Alessandro and class. I will walk you for about 10-15 minutes. I will go super fast through this deck, which is for us our corporate typical intro deck. Alessandro, feel free to share this to the class if it's used only within the boundaries of the class.
I'll do that. Can I just ask you, what's the best way for the students to ask you questions? So they prepared some questions that they will be asking at the end, but do you want them to wait until the end? Do you want to?
I actually don't mind for them to shoot questions right now. And maybe then we can point them to a particular slide. Otherwise, Pallavi and I can just try and answer them. But Ale, I would need you to maybe highlight what questions, and if you don't mind repeating them out loud. So for me and Pallavi to do that. Thank you.
Very well.
All right. Pallavi, second slide in the meantime. And third slide as well. I want to just maybe touch upon so this is why are we doing what we're doing? Because there is a major global financial inclusion problem, especially in emerging markets, especially for certain segments of the population, such as women and such as farmers. Next. Myanmar is an interesting country related to agriculture, because look at those numbers. You have about 29% of the GDP contributed by agri, 37 million people living in rural areas, and about 7 million smallholder farmers, and 70% of the population employed in agriculture. So that's why Maha is not the typical MFI, but Maha is an agri-financial institution. Next. This one is going to be boring slide, Pallavi. Let's go to the shareholders. Yeah, so microfinance in Myanmar is defined as maximum loan ticket size is 10 million chats, which is about $8,500. We have an interest rate cap of 28% per year. We have a saving interest floor of, I believe, 15%. And there is no credit bureau in Myanmar, and 100% of all our loans are unsecured. We cannot take any collateral. Maha has two shareholders. The majority shareholder is Myanmar Oba Group, which is the largest agri-input group in Myanmar, followed by the minority shareholder IFC, International Finance Corporation, which is basically the private sector arm of the World Bank, owning 13% of Maha. Next part. So we definitely have the ambition here to become the most digital rural financial institution in Myanmar, recognized for our ethical standards, push for innovation, and obviously our support to our farming rural communities. We take great pride in telling our audience, investors, lenders, shareholders that we are a very customer-centric MFI, meaning that we build products trying to answer and satisfy customers' needs or trying to fix customers' pain points. Next. Next slide, please.
Yeah,
Cool,
I think, yeah,
There is
sorry,
a
it's there's a bit of a lag. That's why once I do it, it takes a few seconds.
So the five things are quite, those five things really set us apart from the rest of the sector. In Myanmar right now, there are 193 MFIs. We are supervised by the Ministry of Planning and Finance through a regulator called FRD, Financial Regulatory Department. And while most of the MFIs in Myanmar follow a group lending methodology with some individual lending component, and most of them work in urban and semi-urban areas, we are quite different because we have 100% individual lending methodology. We are 100% rural. We use a lot of fintech and technology innovations and partnerships with agtech companies, fintech companies, in order to deliver our products faster, cheaper, more efficiently to farmers. And obviously, we have quite strong, supportive shareholders and very knowledgeable senior management team that has been in the industry for several years. Thank you. Next. And Alessandro, I might do a couple of other slides, and then I am ready for the first question, FYI. Perfect. So, class, this is a bit of a snapshot on what we do right now in terms of numbers. First of all, we are a nationwide player. We work pretty much around the country. We have 32 locations of branches, plus our head office. We manage a team of 243 employees, less than 60,000 farmers currently in our portfolio. Our portfolio size is shrinking now a little bit because we have a seasonality factor that I'm sure we'll discuss later. But back in March, we were a $45 million company. Now it's going down a bit, and we will catch up by July, August this year. As you can see here, the key number is 95% GLP to farmers. GLP is gross loan portfolio. That means that we are really, really focused agri-FI towards that particular segment. Ale, happy to answer the first few questions. Over to you.
Yes. So this is for the students, really. Do you have any? Yeah, Lorenzo, please go ahead.
Hi. So my first question is pretty clear, because I saw, like, at the very beginning that 100% of your loan are unsecured. So I wanted to ask you, like, at the very beginning when you started the company, since I think you already knew about the fact that most of the loans that you were about to give during your career were unsecured. So how did you manage at the very beginning to launch the company, even though you knew about the fact that most of the loan would be unsecured? And so how to, like, make your company sustainable throughout the years and also let it grow?
All right. Thank you, Lorenzo. Especially because I have to give you a couple of clarifications. Number one, Maha was established in 2003, and I came into the picture only in June 2017, and Pallavi, I believe, several months later or a year later. First of all, answering your question, why did our board chairman decided to set up Maha? Well, because we are part of the largest agricultural group in the country that does predominantly three products: seeds, agrochemicals, and fertilizers. And they've been doing this for 25 years. And they serve 3.5 million farming families. They use a network of 20,000 dealers and sub-dealers. And of course, they work with over 100,000 farmers. This is our parent company, our majority shareholder. And when our chairman was traveling around the countryside, he realized that farmers needed cash or affordable loans in order to cover their input costs. What are the agricultural input costs, Lorenzo? Usually, it's basically all the expenses that you have to spend money on in order to prepare your land during planting season, during plowing season. So basically, you have to buy some fertilizer, you have to get some pesticides, you get to get some seeds, you need to hire some labor, you need to also probably hire some machinery. And depending on the crop and depending on the region where you are, you end up having to spend, let's say, $1,000, less than $1,000. But in general, our average ticket size in local currency is about 900,000 chats, which is approximately $700. The reason why the board chairman decided to start up Maha, although he knew and we knew that the portfolio would have been unsecured, 100% without collateral, again, the main motivation was to help farmers get access to affordable credit, Lorenzo. Why? Because farmers in Myanmar are completely not overlooked, but they don't have a lot of options. They cannot go to a bank because they're too small. They cannot go to a bank also because banks only provide secure loans. Unless you have a house or unless you have a piece of land to give as security, the banks will not support you. And very often in emerging markets, Lorenzo, there are huge problems around land titles, land ownership, and whether a farmer can really show a certificate saying, yeah, this land belongs to me. It's called Form 7, but not every farmer has it. So to answer your question, how do you make sure that the company is sustainable vis-a-vis this risk of unsecured loans? Well, you have to take certain precautions, especially during the credit assessment job. First, you basically collect information regarding the farmer and his family. And those are part of questions that we call customer registration form. Then you go and visit the customer's house, you go and visit the customer farm, his land, you talk to the neighbors, you talk to the village administration, and then you collect all the data regarding his or her crop. How many acres of land? How long has he been a farmer? Does he have any secondary sources of income? Does he have any other liabilities with other financial institutions? Does he have any major household expenditure? And then we have in-house a credit scoring engine that was developed by us a few years back. And this credit scoring engine calculates your ability to repay. Anyway, last point I wanna leave you with is if Maha or any other MFI would not have been there for those customers, for those farmers, their only option is to go to work to borrow from money lenders or loan sharks. And this country is full of loan sharks. Everybody's a loan shark. I think even my cleaning lady, she's a loan shark because sometimes, you know, she asks me for money and then she has her own little scheme of 3-4 people where she does micro loans. So it's in the DNA of Burmese people loaning money. But obviously we are trying to do it not with 10% interest per week or per month as the loan sharks do, but obviously we charge 2.3%, which is imposed to us by our regulator. Sorry, it took me a bit of time to answer, but it was a good question. Thank you, Lorenzo. Ale?
No, this was great. I think Inigo had a quick question about your repayment rate, and then Victor also raised his hand.
Sure. So the repayment rates, beautiful question again. In a normal world scenario without COVID, repayments rates are usually great, 99.9%. We have the best portfolio quality in the country. But today, because of COVID-19, what does it mean? There were plenty of lockdowns in Myanmar. I'm still working from home. Pallavi is still working from home. Markets were closed in the country until 15th of May. So they have recently reopened the markets. And they were closed from April 1st to May 15th, which means that all the farmers were unable to sell their crops. The wholesale markets were closed. Agricultural traders were nowhere to be found. This has created a major disruption in the food supply chain in the country, and hence customers have been struggling to make repayments because they were not able to sell their crops or any other products, and hence they were not able to get cash and income. And obviously we had to do some rescheduling. And now to answer, I don't know, some of the questions, our portfolio at risk as of yesterday is 4.72%, while in a normal situation is usually 0.11%. Thank you. Ale?
Yes, Victor.
Just a quick question. I was wondering, because as you said, you are giving those loans so farmers can buy their inputs which they need. But basically, as far as I understood, the microfinance branch is part of a bigger company which is producing all of that. So why are you giving them loans instead of just giving them the product, kind of? Or do you have a special deal maybe that they get the loan and then buy the product from the company? Like,
beautiful question. Victor, makes absolute sense. And there is an easy explanation for that. From 2013, when Maha was founded, up until 2017, when I came on board, there was more cross-selling between OBA and Maha, meaning OBA was telling us which farmers to serve. OBA was also pushing for their products to the farmers who were coming to borrow from Maha. And there were a lot of basically OBA agronomists, OBA marketing team members saying to our farmers, please buy, this is the latest fertilizer, this is the latest product, blah, blah, blah. When IFC, International Finance Corporation, became a shareholder into Maha and OBA went from 100% ownership to 87% ownership, IFC was very vocal about the need for us to put Chinese walls between OBA and Maha, because we couldn't be perceived as financing our majority shareholder. Meaning that if Maha finances farmers to buy OBA's products, there is a conflict of interest. And you can do that when you are the only shareholder and it's your call. But once you have shareholders on board, then you need to give that freedom of purchase to the farmer. So from 2013 to 17, there was a lot of OBA products being sold to farmers. From 2017 onwards, Chinese walls, we are fully independent. Of course, they are majority shareholder, they sit on the board, we get capital from them. But our farmers are free to buy any brand they want, be it OBA or Victor or Alessandro or HULT. It's their choice. We don't interfere, and we have definitely also cut loose all these cross-selling dynamics with OBA. I hope I've answered your question, dear Victor.
thank you.
Thanks.
I saw the thank you. Guys, I also want to remind you that back in, I think, Pallavi, why don't you then now, if Alessandro agrees, I would like Pallavi to quickly walk you through a couple of slides from her department, ESG, because while she finds the slides and she's going to start talking in a minute, I am probably one of the most things that I'm proud of since I came with Maha 3 years ago was the setting up of this new department that Pallavi and I called ESG, Environmental, Social, and Governance. And I tell you why we decided to do that before Pallavi starts telling you what that means. At the beginning of my journey as a CEO, I found a lot of issues that I was not comfortable with. There was no corporate governance in Maha for the first 4 years. There was no board, no committees. Policies and procedures were a bit not finalized and approved by the board, obviously. There was no culture of meritocracy, no KPI. So I spent with my team about a year to reinforce the foundations of Maha. And when we start then talking to international investors for loan facilities, for debt funding, I realized immediately by speaking to these lenders that Maha was not doing nothing at all to measure the impact of our loans. That's why by researching, talking to people, I was actually told by someone that this university in Maastricht had a very interesting program. So I reached out to the university, I spoke to the dean, and Pallavi came to the picture by having those discussions with the dean. She said, oh, we have a brilliant student who just graduated. She's looking for a long-term internship. And I told Pallavi immediately, if this is what we need to measure the impact of our services to our farmers, because maybe we realize that we are not being impactful enough, and if that's the case, then our existence could be put in jeopardy by the shareholders, right? Because we are here to obviously fix a financial inclusion problem, but we're also now, because we are an agri-FI, trying to fix the environmental problem. Pallavi, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. If you stop hearing me at any point, just let me know. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a little snapshot of our impact, and then I'm going to jump first to the S in the ESG, which is social impact, because I would say that that's the big heavy weight for us. If you see here on this slide, you can see just a quick snapshot of our outreach. We're serving over 270,000 acres of land. We have, roughly 60,000 farmers. Our client retention is over 90%. And if you look towards the bottom of the slide, you'll see towards your left that, our borrower makeup in terms of gender is roughly balanced. And that's kind of something that we've seen a constant trend with. The figure next that you see, that over 0.5 ton increased yield per acre for a Maha farmer is something that we found in our study last year, and we actually have cross-validated that figure this year. And if you look towards the right side, you will see that we have over 100,000 MMK, which is roughly $70 improved profit over the last harvest. So these are some of the key figures, and what I'm going to do next is kind of just walk you through our study, because I think that was my first task when I joined Maha as an intern, and we've completed our second impact report just last month. So I'll just go over there and explain to you about that real quick. So in measuring impact, I think we have two crucial pillars. The first is your standard poverty line, below poverty line measurement, which we do using this tool called Progress Out of Poverty Index. It's a standard tool. It was actually created a lot keeping MFIs in mind. It's 10 questions, and at the end of 10 questions, you have this score, which basically tells you the likelihood of your client being below a certain poverty line. So last year we had the $2.50 a day line, and actually this year we've upgraded it based on a new PPI that's actually a special thing that's designed for every country. So from now on, actually we're going to start using the $3.2 a day line. And what we're also going to do is we're going to start measuring it for every client since the month of March. But last year, for example, we took a representative sample and we measured this. We saw that 73% of our clientele was below the poverty line, which is, I think, something that's really positive for us, because this is the target group that we want to reach. And it was also interesting for us because, in many countries, and based on my own prior readings, I always assumed that, farmers are a bit better off than, micro entrepreneurs and vendors. And where I come from in India, also you tend to see a similar trend. But we kind of saw the opposite here, which also is like exciting and promising for us, because that's the segment that we serve. And while this is just, an indication of income levels and income poverty, we wanted to measure impact in a more holistic way. So like Matteo mentioned earlier, we wanted to talk about outcomes and impacts on the agriculture business, but also on household, and also to see exactly where are our farmers spending that money, what are their preferences. And this is actually a great data point for us to then kind of look to develop more products that are in line with this in the future. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of our methodology and our results, and then we'll pause for questions after that. So what we do is, this is a standard impact evaluation methodology. We have an extensive survey that we designed and that we first ask our customers using a representative sample from our existing customer pool. We usually go for customers who've received our loan for 18 months to 24 months. The reason being, they've had consecutive loans for long enough for us to assess some kind of impact. And then what we do is we go to non-customers. And by non-customers here, I mean people who are not taking any loans, from the formal financial sector. And we look for people in, similar villages, similar living conditions, family size, crops, and kind of also pass the criteria of our loans. And we do a comparison. And if I go here, just, not to confuse you too much, we use this technique called propensity score matching, which basically means it's a concept where, you have data from your own customers, and then you kind of create this control group, that, and as similar as possible so that they're actually, comparable. So kind of comparing apples with apples. Now, if you see the box on your left, the red is, of course, Maha customers, and the green are, non-MFI customers. And what the basically the different sizes represent are different profiles, right? So if you want to look at a farmer who is in a particular region, growing a particular crop, has a particular household size, then that person should be compared to somebody, who is similar to his or her profile. And that's kind of what this technique does for us. I don't know if you guys are aware of RCTs and randomized control trials. I'm sure you are. I'm sure Alessandro is as well. But this kind of just tries to mimic that, because RCTs are far more expensive and time consuming to implement. And what we found, again, this year, so first we look at agricultural outcomes. And so we see a positive effect, of course, on the yield per acre and also the profit over the last harvest cycle. We see 0.25 tons here, which is significant at 10%. So we can say with, let's say, 90% confidence that these numbers are somewhat indicative of the effect. And we see a profit of 100,000 MMK, which is roughly $70 for our farmers vis-a-vis the non-farmers that we interviewed. And the official term is average treatment effect on the treated, but it basically just means that. And then when we match our farmers and non-farmers, there are many different techniques to do that. I won't get into that because I think I'm getting too technical and it might also get a bit boring. But we use one technique that is the most commonly used, and we used a second one just to kind of do a robustness check. And you will see that while the numbers are not very exact to each other, but they're pretty indicative of a positive effect in these two arenas. And again, we see the 0.55 with 99% confidence that that's the impact of our loans on the yield. I'm just going to quickly go here. So that was on agriculture. Quickly on the household bit, I'm not going to repeat all the results, but what we noticed is, what was interesting for us is that household expenditure and food expenditure kind of remained the same between our farmers and the non-farmers. And where people tended to spend their money is, you can see a large chunk of expenditure, roughly $500 in home improvement. And then the second largest chunk was spent towards education. And this was something we also saw when we, did qualitative interviews with our farmers. And this data is very helpful, because I think in the future, when if we create more loan products and we create more savings products, this can kind of inform the kind of product we want to design, because those are the areas where our farmers are spending their money. So I will stop here for any questions, and yeah.
Thank you, Pallavi. This was great. Is there any question at this stage on the impact measurement, on the focus on environmental, social, and governance dimensions of the business model?
I hope Pallavi did not scare the class.
I am sorry if I was too technical. I try not to be. So just please tell me if I am, and then I'll just skip over it.
No, I think this is brilliant. Look, we've had Maha as a case study in this course. I think this is the 3rd year running, if I remember correctly. And I must say, when Matteo suggested bringing you as an additional speaker, I was really looking forward to it. And now I'm happy that Matteo suggested it. I think you did a great job, and it adds a lot of depth to our understanding. So
yeah,
Matteo,
sorry, Ale, let's be clear. Next year, I'm back. Let's see. I don't want Pallavi to take my place. So
I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about that, my friend.
I'm sure, Prof. Fair enough.
No, but there's one question I wanted to ask, if I'm also allowed to ask questions. But and I think it comes. Sorry, I realized my webcam was off. It fits now. I was going to ask it anyway, but I think that I wanted to ask you if you could tell me, something like what does a success story look like for you? And I see now that you also have a lot of numbers and data to validate and back it up. But if you were to give a layman's little storytelling description of how does a success story look like for you based off this data?
Yes. Okay. So if we just take a step back and look at it very generally, we also do a lot of qualitative interviews to kind of back this up. And I think the biggest success story is, I will touch upon the point Matteo made earlier about money lenders, and the fact that farmers are able to use this service and not pay something like 40, 50, 60% as interest rate, and that they're able to use that additional disposable income towards something that is adding value to their life. I think in a nutshell, on a conceptual level, that is a success story for us. So for example, one of our farmers we interviewed was telling us that he was constantly stressed out about, how he would meet. He had 3 children, and he was concerned on how he would meet educational expenditure. But because he was able to maximize his profits, and he was able to even hire some labor on his farm, he was able to increase his disposable income. So I think a success story for us is if we can maximize that disposable income, and then allow the farmer to channel it to where it's adding value and helping them improve their well-being, then I think that's the definition of success story for us on a rudimentary level.
And Ale, I would like to add a couple of points on this beautiful Pallavi story, which I'm absolutely, I agree with her. The idea is also to grow together with this customer in terms of business. So Maha today offers probably a loan to this particular farmer that Pallavi was mentioning, but starting in October this year, we're going to launch also new savings products for those farmers. And we also offer micro insurance to this farmer. And we want this farmer to expand his land, buy more land through more disposable income that is available for him. And hence, it's important for us to also grow that farmer as a businessman for that particular land, for that particular region, for that particular household, by offering new financial inclusion type of services: savings, loans, insurance, remittances, education. Also, Pallavi and her team, they do a lot of financial literacy for farmers. So basically, we want to have a complete journey where today, predominantly, we are a lending institution. But hopefully a year from today, we should be also a liability institution in terms of offering savings products. And that to me, it's an important message because, you know, when you are in, right now we have loan officers collecting applications and serving customers. But in the future, we have this crazy idea of transforming the loan officers into rural wealth managers, because you don't have to be rich to deserve a private banking relationship manager. We want to apply those private banking concepts into rural areas in emerging markets. We want our loan officers in the next 4 or 5 years to be able to act and think like a private banking relationship manager, where a farmer would go to our branches and say, I need a home improvement loan. I want to send my kids to school. I need a virtual credit card. I want to apply for a loan. This is our vision of Maha in the next 5 years.
Brilliant. Does this mean that you need to get a different, like a bank charter or different, you need to transform in any way? Sorry, then we have 2 questions, but just very quickly.
Ali, to answer your question, first of all, no, we don't need to change our license. Our microfinance license already can allow us to mobilize savings and offer savings products to the customers. The reason why we have not done it up until now is because we need 2 years of consecutive year-end profits verified by our external auditors and approved by our regulator before our deposit-taking license is activated. We are planning to do that, if everything goes well, in October, November 2020. Your second question is?
No, so Lorenzo had a question as well, and then Victor. And then there's a question from Lucilla in the chat. She asks pretty much, how do you make sure that farmers will stay with you in the future and not go to a more conventional commercial bank?
All right. So Lucilla, thank you for that. Great question. How do we make sure farmers stay with Maha? By being customer-centric, by listening to them, by asking what you need. How can we help your needs and your family's needs? Is this product really answering some of those needs? If the answers are yes, and you are able to offer those products in a timely fashion, with a human touch, with a smile on your face, with innovation, I think you have a pretty good chance that that customer sees the effort that you put in, and you basically make that customer loyal to you and loyal to the Maha's journey.
Thanks. Look, let me take a couple of questions first. Inigo, we'll come to your question in a moment. So Lorenzo was first, then we have Victor, Karna, and Adrian.
Okay, so my very first question is about, so as we are talking about the literacy in finance and how also you are helping people by this point of view, since like we read a case study just 2 days ago about like literacy in finance and how microfinance company can help people also to have a more wide overview regarding finance. I wanted to ask you if in Myanmar, like you found that like, as also we read in the case study, that women tend to be more, I don't know how to explain it, to be more attentive with like funds and finance as they want to like invest their money in their business, in their family, more than men, which sometimes can tend to be less like, I don't know, less in investing with the money and so on. So this is the very first thing that I wanted to ask you. And the second one is about what, if it's possible to ask the second question, is about what the question that Lucilla asked you earlier, which is, so you want to be centric with your customer, you want to keep like your company very centered on the customer, but I wanted to ask you, aren't you like scared about the fact that maybe one day, since Myanmar is a growing market, like Western companies such as, I don't know, like Revolut or bigger companies want to enter the market, and those companies are as well very customer centered. So how are you planning also to like keep your business innovative compared also to those companies? Thank you.
All right, Pallavi, why don't you answer the financial literacy women part, and I will tackle his second part. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay. Yeah. So nice question. So there is, of course, when you look at micro entrepreneurs and small businesses, even in our case, actually, we have a disproportionately larger number of women compared to men, and that does have, of course, then again a cascading effect on expenditure on education, expenditure on health and food and all of that, because there is, of course, this popular hypothesis, which has been again validated by some studies, that women then tend to spend differently than men do, and that has a larger impact. But again, most of our portfolio is farmers, 95%, and this is kind of, let's say, gender agnostic, in the sense that we have a mix, roughly always, it's amazing that you will see over time that the data will always show it's always some kind of a 50-50, but not for the 5% of our portfolio, which is mostly which is small businesses, and it's has a higher degree of women in it. Talking about financial literacy, we do give that as well as part of our service. We have this nice cartoon video, which if you guys are interested, you can go on our website. We have a page called Social Footprint, and we've put it on there. It's in Myanmar language, but it's still fun to watch if you like, and it kind of follows the story of a typical farmer. And the first module is again financial literacy, and the second one is again about environmental sustainability, which we also give them in a pamphlet. So that's kind of what we do. It's part of our credit cycle. It's something that our clients receive before they go through the loan process. So that's about that. And another thing I wanted to point out is in our impact study, actually, we didn't include the results because, again, it was getting too lengthy and we wanted to streamline. We did ask questions about, these are subjective, but in terms of decision making. And it's very positive to see that here in Myanmar that I was expecting that a lot of business and household decisions are, or at least when it comes to business, will be majority, where the husband takes them. But when we ask, both men and women in our sample group, it's interesting to see that there is a relative balance. That's not something that I've included in the study for other reasons, but yeah, here you kind of see in the farming community there's a 50-50 balance, and even the subjective perception of decision-making power kind of reflects that. So I hope that answers the question, and over to Matteo.
Lorenzo, your second part of the question, I think it's brilliant. Right now, we are still working with cash. Right now, we're still using a very high-touch model. And these two things will definitely change because as part of our digital transformation plan, which is, by the way, being accelerated by the impact of COVID, in the next 12 months, we would like to partner with mobile money operators. We would like to partner with mobile banking companies in order to offer a digital repayment and disbursement option to the farmers. So how do you keep innovating? You have to keep innovating, and you have to keep investing in this customer journey together with Maha. How can I be sure that these farmers will stay for us forever? Forget about it. You can't be sure. Absolutely. They can leave you today, they can leave you tomorrow. But we believe that by keep innovating, by being by their side, by being customer-centric, by having a pulse of the situation, we probably have some certain advantages over other slow-moving companies or groups. The reason why we believe, and we sometimes say we think like a fintech, we act like a fintech, is because we are not afraid of groups like Revolut. We want to partner with groups like Revolut. We want to see whether we can answer some of the pain points of those farmers. For example, we are discussing with Amazon Web Services in Singapore a couple of innovative projects, which I can't disclose right now, in order to onboard farmers in a different fashion altogether. Back to you, Ale, because I believe we have a few other questions.
Thank you. Yes, Victor was next. Then I have Karna and Adria.
Yeah, just quick question, because I really like the idea of offering private banking services kind of to farmers, and just in general what you're doing right now already with all of the pre-work you have to do. it feels to me like this is quite expensive, but you're only charging a 2.3% interest rate. So I'm just wondering, are you making a profit, or are you making a loss with this, or how do you manage to not lose a lot of money?
Sure, Victor, you're not in microfinance to make money, first of all. And that's why it's important that the shareholders realize that yes, you can make money in microfinance. Yes, you can give good dividends, and yes, you can give good ROE. But it's very important since day one to understand with your shareholders what the expectations are. What do they want? What do they want to do? What do they want to achieve? And usually, there are of course good and bad exceptions. Shareholders want to make money, but they create value for three categories: shareholders, employees, and customers. And this is what we are trying to do on a daily basis. Maha has been loss making for the first 4 years of its life. We've been profitable on a monthly basis since June 18. March 19 was our first year-end profit. March 20 was our second year-end profit. March 21, we hope, given the COVID-19, will be a third consecutive profit. Do we make money now? Yes. Our margins, you're correct, are very, very thin. And it's important for us to have economies of scales. Microfinance is an economy of scale business. If you think that you can make money by delivering a $700 loan to a rural farmer in Myanmar, only by doing few loans like this, forget about it. You will die waiting to make value. But obviously with economies of scale kicking in, by having different, sizable portfolio, that's where you try to squeeze in some value for your shareholders from a monetary perspective. I hope I've answered your question. Back to you, Ale.
Yes, brilliant. Karna.
Yes, so my question was that the farmers, they get loans and they utilize it to increase their output. Hence, they can earn more money and can grow. So what happens when the market for growth gets saturated, meaning the food demands in the country gets met and there is no more growth opportunity for farmers to produce more, as there is no more demand for the product. And the exports in the foreign market are kind of competitive because there are already established large-scale farmers who can produce at a really cheap cost. Also, given the climatic condition of one place, they must be producing one kind of crop. So what happens when you have reached the output, optimum level of output, and then what happens then? How do you go forward from there? Because now there are no more people to take loans and generate more returns on the future loans that they will take.
So, Karna, thank you for your question. I'll try to be brief here. First of all, we deal with smallholder farmers, and those smallholder farmers, they typically have between 3 and 5 acres of land. Typically, most of our farmers produce for local consumption. We have very few farmers who produce for export to Thailand, China, and India. But Thailand, China, and India are major export markets for some of the Burmese crops, such as corn, watermelon, cotton, beans, and pulses. Right now, there are 7 million smallholder farmers in Myanmar, and we are only touching basically around 65,000 farmers back in March. I think the number now it went back to 57,000. So before we reach your scenario, I think we're going to be needing another 10 to 20 years to cover and satisfy the demand of this country. Once you are also talking about climate conditions, that's a brilliant point. Absolutely. In Myanmar right now, there is no way we can buy a crop insurance product because it doesn't exist as a product. There are some companies there is one, for example, in London, offering global parametric risk insurances in order to link a global weather phenomenon, for example, cyclone, hurricane, excessive rain, floods, and financial institutions can buy those type of global parametric risk products in order to cover a percentage of their portfolio. We are not doing that, but we are speaking to a couple of names right now to see what's the feasibility of that. But so far, based on what I've seen, the premium are quite high and very costly. Hence, to cover a $45 million portfolio, you will probably need to spend a couple of $1 million, which is not the whole intention. And I think, again, if a farmer outgrows Maha, let's say, and Maha cannot keep up with that farmer, I would hope that farmer graduates from an MFI, and now, thanks to our work, we make him a banking client. And maybe his needs will be served by a commercial bank in Myanmar. And that, to me, would not be a failure. I would actually have to discuss with Pallavi, but to me, that would also could be a definition of success. Back to you, Ale. And Pallavi, please.
Pallavi, do you want to comment on this? Yeah.
Pallavi, feel free to chip in if you want to add something. Thank you. Sorry, Ale.
Sorry to interrupt, but what I was asking was, so what happens to Maha when, say, all the farmers have sustained themselves and they are producing enough, which is satisfying the country, and there are no more, say, farmers who needs a loan from Maha. So what happens to Maha after, say, those 10 or 20 years, which you were saying will require to fulfill the needs of the country?
We probably need to switch and change market segments and offer different loans to different market segments. For example, micro SMEs, small traders. We could think of new innovative green financing products. We could change the business model. We are not thinking along those lines yet because we've been around for 7 years. Our parent group has been around for 25 years. We are a local Burmese company, and I believe we're here to stay. Thank you, Karna.
Thanks. Pallavi, did you want to comment at all on the...
Yeah, I just actually want to say I never thought of it like that, but it's beautiful, right? If our farmers no longer need loans from us and they become, this savvy banking customer, then yes, I think our long-term goal should be that. And it actually even adds to the question you asked earlier, what is success? So I think, yeah, the long-term success is this. So yeah, I don't have anything else to add, except that I just learned something new.
Making yourself redundant. So. Growing out of a job in a way. I'm exaggerating, but that's, yeah. Matteo, I think you also have been waiting for a while to ask a question.
Yeah, thank you. First, thanks for coming. Yeah, you both. So you touched on COVID-19. So what do you think is going to be your biggest challenges in a post-crisis situation? Like, do you expect a rise in customers as more people will go under poverty? And if I can do a second short question on something I've read on the chat, like, I assume your customer acquisition cost might be quite high. Is it easy? How do you deal with that? Thank you.
Thank you, Adria, for your question. Quickly, again, on your first part, first of all, there will be a post-COVID environment, but probably that post-COVID environment will be affected in a major way by those current months. So what is a new normal? What does it mean? How does the new normal gonna look like? It's something that we're trying to answer on a daily basis. To be more precise, I think we expect in this year to still have major challenges when it comes to collections, ability for customers to repay. Hence, we're going to definitely face liquidity and cash flow issues for Maha. We're also going to face portfolio quality issues for Maha. And microfinance, especially the lending business of microfinance, it's pretty much a chicken and egg thing. Very often, these microfinance borrowers need additional capital to grow and keep planting and keep serving their companies, their farms, etc. Unless if you stop disbursing and you only collect loans, at some point, this little game is no longer going to work, because farmers are realizing that although they're striking and they're striving to make on-time repayments, if the lending institution does not continue supporting them, they will probably default on your loans because they know those loans are unsecured. And the worst I can do is we can take them to court. But in Myanmar, taking them to court sometimes it's not really worth it. It costs money. The legal proceedings take a long time. The judges are not always, let's say, following international legal best practices. And hence, it's really challenging for us unless we really find an optimal way of disbursing new loans and collecting money, disbursing and collecting. But this equation is definitely going to be challenged by the COVID-19. As you have seen, our collection indicators are not as good as in the past. A lot of farmers are in a terrible situation in Myanmar. They cannot sell their products. And some of those crops are perishable items, like tomatoes. You cannot keep tomatoes for 3 months and expect that someone buys your tomato after 3 months, unless you have 1-2 weeks maximum, maybe 3 weeks to find a good buyer at a good pricing. This is not happening, dear Adria, and this is something that is concerning us a lot. And that's why we are being a bit more we are being a bit more conservative right now. Before disbursing loans, we obviously also want to make sure that the money comes back. Just to give you a couple of statistics. In April 2019, we collected 100% of our due loans. In April 2020, 88%. Today, which is what, 28th of May, we have been collected 92% of what is due in May. And that's, again, it's a spectacular number, but it's not good enough because we used to have 100% collections in May 2019. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you, Matteo. This is brilliant. Thank you, Pallavi, as well. I am really sorry that we're out of time.
No.
Yeah, we only have a couple of minutes left. But good news is that, first of all, Matteo's coming back tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a panel discussion on the future of microfinance. So some of the questions that I saw at the background, you will get a chance to answer tomorrow. And the other thing is, if you fail the course, you can still take it next year. And both Matteo and Pallavi are coming back, so don't worry about it.
I hope for the class they don't fail. Otherwise, they have to re-listen to the same thing over and over again.
No, but so this was really brilliant. I'm really grateful for your openness and your answers. I mean, I love the pace. You had a very, very good rhythm. You didn't take too long, but you covered a lot in your presentation, and then you addressed a number of questions in a very, very nice way. I mean, I enjoyed this very much, and I was actually surprised that time was already up because I was really engaged. I'm not sure if you have any like final words, like something to wrap up in terms of a message for the students or your own recommendations.
Thank you, Ale. Well, from my side, at least, the message is I was considered pretty much a black sheep back in my university days, because while everybody was doing an analyst program with GE, Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, consulting, Accenture, I was the guy going between Serbia, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Thailand. I was a poorly paid young consultant, but I have no regrets. So my message to you is, don't live someone else's career or someone else's study life or academic life. Follow your passion, go ahead, and at least if you make mistakes, you cannot get angry with anybody else but yourself, and work hard. Pallavi, over to you.
Yeah, I think the only thing I have to add from my experience is that I had lots of bias and preconceived notions, and I was really strong, you know, even without trying half the stuff. I used to just argue and fight because I loved doing that. And you know, again, my university environment was the United Nations universities. It's all very, you know, social welfare. And I was like, all enterprises are evil. So what I mean to say from my experience is that, you know, have fun, explore new things, and it's fine to have strong opinions. I know I still have a lot of them, and maybe they're not all right. But challenge yourself and be willing to be challenged, and it's okay, you know, if you're wrong in the end, that's totally fine. So I think that's my message in the end.
Amazing. Thank you both so very much.